Practicing a musical instrument can be really daunting. How do I practice? What do I practice? How long do I practice for? I'm going to help you out in this video with 7 tips to improve your practicing. My name is Billy from Piano and Pies. Let's get stuck straight in. Tip number 1, play it slow. Over the past 17 years, I've taught lots of students and they love to jump into songs, whether it's a song that's supposed to be played fast or a song that's supposed to be played slow. Sometimes what happens is they get really eager to get through the full song and to try and just play it as best they can. However, when you're learning a song, it's really important to go really slow. Because at that moment, you're still figuring out the notes, whether it's on piano or violin or guitar, whatever instrument. It takes time to develop that knowledge between reading the music or listening to the music, getting it in your brain and getting it into your fingers to play on your instrument. My point is, if you go slow, you're going to develop that technique far quicker than trying to play it fast. I know that sounds a little bit contradictory, but when you play slow, you really get used to the notes and you get used to where the fingers need to play on your instrument. Whereas if you keep playing fast, what's going to happen is you'll probably make a mistake because you can't keep up with the song. Then you just end up going back and repeating yourself, and it just takes far longer. If you play slow, you can figure out what you need to do on your instrument, and then you'll get through the song a lot better that way. Tip number 2, practice the harder parts first. When it comes to practicing, I've noticed one trend with some of my students. They'll play through what they've been working on over the week, and partway through the song, there might be a tricky bar that they're just struggling with. And when they get to that bar, after playing the first part really well, they'll fumble their way through the notes and they'll say, oh, I'll go back to the start, I'll go back to the start. And then they'll go back to the start and it'll sound great until that bar, and then they'll fumble their way through and then they'll say, oh, I'll go back to the start and do it again, hoping that it'll just be fine. The problem is, what you're doing, you're training yourself to be really good at the first part. You're getting in the practice there, but you're avoiding the harder part, or the hardest section of a song, let's say. So when it comes to practicing, whether you're working towards a lesson or a performance, the best thing to do is to break the song away from the easy parts and the hard parts and just focus on the hard part. Whether it's one bar or one section or a page of a song, focus on that more than just going from start to finish. Because what that does, it makes, if you go from start to finish, you will spend far longer practicing a song and you won't be spending effective and efficient time on the part you need to. So all I mean is find the hard part and practice that a bunch of times until you think that sounds just as good as the easy part of the song at the beginning. And then when you're happy with it, then put the full song together. And then you might surprise yourself to see how well that all fits together. That is the faster way of learning a song rather than just going from start to finish every time. Tip number 3, practice in small chunks. What I say to all of my students is to practice a little and often. So this is all to do with how long you practice on a day. Some students, and myself included, will fall into a routine of not practicing. And then the day before their lesson, they will think, uh-oh, got to practice. So they'll cram it all into one day. They might do a whole afternoon or a full hour or two. What that doesn't do is really teach us and get used to playing whatever we need to play for the lesson or for the performance. If you can practice just a little bit most days, let's say 15-20 minutes most days, not only do you develop a really good routine, but that helps your brain and your fingers work out what it needs to do for the song or for the scale or whatever you're practicing, and it really develops that in far more detail than just cramming it all into one day. And I see my students progress far more if they get into that routine. It doesn't need to be for hours and hours every night, unless you're going to be the next world superstar on your piano or the next rock star. You don't need to be practicing a lot. But if you can get into that routine of just a little bit here and there, let's say you're working towards a grade or you're just playing for fun, get into a routine, small chunks. What I say to my students is 15-20 minutes most days and have the weekend off. That's what works for them, but you'll find your own routine. See what works for you, but small chunks. I think that's just that point enough. Tip number 4, listen to the song. So some people will probably find this quite an obvious tip. However, sometimes when you get a new song to learn, you might not know what the song is. Maybe your teacher's given it to you. The best thing to do, the first thing I do, is to sit down with the music, not at my instrument, not at my piano or guitar. I'm at my computer and I put the song on and I'm listening to it, following the music on the page. I'm seeing where the high notes and low notes go. Maybe you can't read music. Just listen to the song. Don't do anything else. So don't be playing on your phone whilst listening to the song. Don't be doing the dishes whilst listening to the song. Just listen. Listen to how the notes change, how the music changes, whether you're practicing the chords or just the melody or anything. Listen to how it all comes together. That can really help you when it comes down to actually playing the song, because you'll get used to figuring out what the rhythms are. That's a really important one, in fact. So getting used to how the melody works, knowing when the high notes are coming up, and when, if you have to move lower or play more, you'll think, oh, I remember listening to the song and thinking, oh yeah, that's the part where there's a load of notes I need to play. So you can then prepare your hands on your instrument. So listen to the song, it can really help. Tip number 5, keep your instrument accessible. So what I find with younger learners is after a lesson or after their practice session, they will put their guitars especially in their bag and then I put it in a cupboard ready for the next practice. And when the next day comes around, when they think, oh, should I practice my guitar? They'll walk into the bedroom and the cupboard's in the corner and the guitar's right at the back. And then they'll look over to their Xbox or Switch or whatever it is, and they can just press a button and it's on. Which one are they going to go for? Even with adults, they might think something similar. They might think, oh, well, I could, read a book. It's far too much hassle to get the guitar out. My point is, if you have your guitar on a stand or your instrument, whatever instrument it is, just ready, so it's just easily picked up and practiced. Maybe your music is already on a stand, so all you have to do is get the instrument, if it's a violin, or if it's a keyboard, you can just sit down and you can just get into it straight away. So there's almost like a path of least resistance. It's fighting the urge to turn the Xbox on, and you're just going straight to that instrument. That will encourage you to practice more. You could even go one step further and put your instrument in a room that you use all the time. Let's just say you are always in the living room, which is where I am right now. I can have my guitar right in the corner, right next to the door, and when I walk in, I see the guitar and I think, oh, hold on, let me just jam that song I was playing earlier. And there we go, I'm into practicing. If you can do the same, you'll find that you practice far more often. Tip number 6, playing versus practicing. Go with me on this one. This might sound a bit strange, but when you come to practice your instrument, you sit down at the instrument and you start playing. And you might practice really, really well. You might play through lots of songs, but that's not necessarily practicing or making progress. You might sit down and play for 30, 40 minutes on songs you already know and you're rehearsing, or you're just knowing and playing what you already know. To practice, that is different. Playing, you're just not really thinking about what you're doing, you're just playing away, you're noodling away on your instrument. Practicing, you're really taking charge of what you're doing. You're thinking, what do I need to do to get to the next step? How can I be better than yesterday's practice, or a week ago, or a month ago? What can I do to get to the next level? That's what you need to be thinking about every time you sit down to your instrument. So, for example, right now, I'm learning a song by Einaudi, and sometimes I'll just play through some other songs and I'll get myself kind of really happy with the progress I made, and then at the end I'll think, oh, that was great, I've played through so many songs. And then I realise I spent maybe 5 minutes of that time on the Einaudi piece, and I'm thinking, oh, okay, didn't really get much done there, did I? So it's really important that you structure your practice. So it's not just you sitting and playing, it's you practicing and making progress. So think, what do I need to do and how do I get there? That's what you want to do. Tip 7, keep a practice journal. practice journal can do a number of things to help you practice your instrument and to make you a better musician. So every time I sit at my piano, when I'm practicing, at the end of that practice, I'll get my little black book out and I'll make a few notes. And what I do, I write down what I've practiced, but I'll also write what I did really well. And I'll write down the things I want to practice the next time, things I want to work on, or things that will help me get to the next step. And it'll keep me focused on a certain direction rather than just having just random practice. It'll keep me focused. I try not to write down negative things. I don't write down saying, oh, fluffed up that line, or I made a kind of rubbish mistake on that one scale. I try and keep my journal as a positive thing and as a constructive thing. So if you come to use a practice journal, try and use it in the same way. Another good thing about the journal is that you can look back over the past few weeks and months and you can see how well you've made some progress. So if you get into a bit of a rut like we always do when it comes to practicing, maybe you're thinking, oh, I'm just not making any progress, I'm rubbish. You can get your journal and look back 2 or 3 months and see how well you've actually come on. So I really recommend getting a journal. You could just write it on a bit of paper, you don't even need a book. You could even make it online as well. So those are my 7 tips to get the best out of playing a musical instrument. Now, if you think I've missed out a really obvious tip, or if there's a tip that you think works really well, maybe you've done it in your own practice, then write it in the comments below and I might make a follow-up video very soon and I'll include it there as well. Now, if you liked everything that I've done today, and if you like my content, you know what to do. If you can like and subscribe, that would be brilliant. I also have a Patreon where you can support me that way. Or if you maybe want to buy me a coffee, then you can buy me a coffee that way. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Billy, and I'll see you next time.